Welcome, everyone. We will be going live in about 8 minutes. So get settled in. Thank you for being here. Hi, everyone. This is Annalisa. If you just came on, we're going to wait one more minute and we'll be getting started shortly. Please post in the chat your name and introduction, where you're calling in from. Thank you. Okay, welcome everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. Could somebody give me thumbs up? Let me know if my volume is okay and you can hear me okay. Thank you. So I'm going to get started with a few housekeeping points. Thank you everyone for joining me today. This is a topic that I have been wanting to talk about and talk to people in this field about some important points. So I appreciate the opportunity to do that today. If you have comments that come up and you want to share in the chat, please do. There will be a time at the end for questions. I'm not going to interrupt or stop during the presentation. I'm going to wait to take questions at the end. So if you have a question, jot it down, remember it, or if you put it prior in the chat at the question time, please post it again so I make sure to get to everybody's questions. I'm going to, I think everybody is muted. Welcome everyone. I'm Annalisa Burns with Pet Search and Rescue, and I am excited to share with you my first business basics class. And we are going to be talking about consultations. I wanted to take a moment and mention there's some upcoming training opportunities before we dive in. We have a charging for lost pet searches and services online training. This applies to both nonprofits and businesses. If you're already charging, you want to charge, you want to find out what going rates are, you want to get feedback, this is the business basics class for you. This is really good for nonprofits also because nonprofits need to stay in business. And right now, we're seeing a lot of nonprofits that barely are making ends meet to feed the dogs in their care, cats in their care, and keep the ball rolling. So, this is a really good way to get some thinking outside the box ideas to make that happen. And then December 13th, I'm offering Setting Goals workshop for 2026. This is a great time. I love setting goals for the next year, how many cases I want to work, how many animals I want to help and advocate for. And if you have any requests for topics for trainings in person, online, let me know. I will be offering in person training in 2026. I'm looking at different locations and dates, so stay tuned. I also offer one on one coaching online. So if you're interested in that, please do reach out to me. For our online course today, we're going to be focusing on initial consultations. And this is that period of time where you have received a call or an inquiry and you're speaking to the person, and you're either going to convert them to a full conversation with a full consultation, in person search, whatever the services are. And by the way, these services could be everything from humane trapping to, again, coaching. And again, it will apply to nonprofits and businesses also. I'm not going to go step by step through every single question I ask people because I'm giving you my super proprietary questionnaire, and I'll be sending that to you after this Zoom meeting. So you'll have it and you can use those questions verbatim to go through consultations or just take a look at what you're asking people and what I'm asking people and make updates. And I'd love to hear your feedback. So we're going to cover relationship with the client, communication, how to conduct a professional consultation, and effective consultation, establishing trust and credibility, and setting clear expectations for our clients. And this is going to go over into compliance, getting our clients to actually follow our recommendations. So let's dive in. You'll notice that on some of these, I will repeat myself because we know you have to repeat to learn. And I want to make sure we all get the points and how they fit together in many different ways. I have to start with a shout out to my soulmate dog, Lily. She's the reason that I am here speaking to you today. This picture on the left is from 2020. So, actually, over 20 years ago, when I found her at Animal Control, and it was love at first sight. You can see the size of her intake number, 531, is about as big as her whole head. And then you can see that's the before picture. The after picture on the right is Lily wearing bunny slippers and her fleece jacket that matched my convertible car when I got into this over 20 years ago. So shout out to my soul dog Lily that started this whole adventure. Some basics. There's many different ways to do consultations, and I'm sharing my preferred way, my preferred pattern. I've interviewed multiple professional pet detectives, volunteer and paid, and included their feedback in this training. I want to mention that we have on this recording today some absolutely stellar expert individuals at giving consultations, people I call and ask for their feedback and recommendations. And I invite everybody to share their wisdom in the chat with your tips and tricks as they come up throughout the training. And I want to thank you very much for joining me in learning more about consultations. I have some suggested reading books that I put on my website, which is under my gear page. And you can go there to see a couple of books that I referenced in developing this online training. And one of those books in particular, I'm shouting out to, which is Conversations with an Investigator. And this is by Kitty Haley. She is really one of the female groundbreakers in private investigation. And while her book is clearly not for pet detectives or related to lost pets, it does cover a lot of the basics, especially for people new in looking for lost pets, new into investigations, and working with clients. So, overall, a lot of the message is from her book. And I also want to shout out to at the end of her book, she also doesn't believe in gatekeeping. I like to share resources and information. She has a form appendix in the back, and she has everything that she has used in her PI business from case information, criminal cases, field reports. So you can take those and apply them to lost pets and the scenarios that come up with that. So shout out to that book, and it's linked on my gear page. You have to find the sweet spot for you and your clients with doing consultations, and the only way to do that is through trial and error and practice and role playing. I know it can be very frustrating to deal with clients who aren't listening or non-compliant. And so one of the ways to do that is by role playing with someone else to get practice and get better at it. There's always room for improvement. And again, please share your tips in the chat. And when you're helping somebody with a lost pet, there's a role both as investigator, client guide, and we all know oftentimes therapist, friend. And I want to focus on our overall consult goals, which is to build trust, gather key information, help, and set expectations. My number one tip, so this will mostly be for sort of the average person who is doing consultations, has a business. It's not going to be focused on beginners per se, but I wanted to give my number one tip for beginners. So anybody who might be watching this now or recorded later can have a place to start. And my number one tip is to, if you're getting into doing consultations or helping people with lost pet services in person, it's to practice with a friend and do role playing. And it's really funny. It's a great thing to do. You'll laugh so hard your sides will hurt. It really is a lot of fun to practice. And here's some scenarios that I recommend that are good for beginners to start off with. And that includes if you can't work a case, you're sick, how do you handle that script? How do you role play for any scenarios that might be challenging for you? This also is good for whether you do consultations on the phone. Here's Landa Cold Iron and one of the Bloodhounds actually on an old fashioned payphone, or if you do it on the computer, if you do email consultations or even video call consultations. This is the most important tips. This is the big important. I'm not going to wait till the end to give you the most important information I want you to know. 1, use a script. 2, trust your gut. 3, you use consultations not only to help people, but also to screen business or volunteer clients. And I'm going to start with the trust your gut comment because I think that's really where, as someone who works with animal behavior and investigations, where really our talents shine through when we are very experienced in doing this. And if your gut is telling you there are red flags or there are issues with this case, trust your gut. Now, when you have resistance to a case, you do need to do a little bit of introspection. Like, let's say, for example, somebody is really triggering you who has a lost cat, or you offer trapping, but there's something about this person. You don't know if you want to go out and do trapping with them. You have to ask, why is that resistance there? So the gut feeling isn't the beginning and end of it, it's the beginning. Then the second step is why. And to answer that, you can journal. Sometimes it might be a pattern of behavior that you're seeing in clients. Sometimes it is that really big red flag that's like, no, I'm not going to, this isn't safe to work. And then you can adjust the script, you can adjust your behavior based on lessons learned. So I want to share one of my gut reactions to a case. I got called by a father who was looking to help his son find his lost dog, Gus. And I was just getting these crazy gut feelings. Don't work for this guy. I don't know what it was. I was really triggered in some way. And I was going to not work for him. And there was as much there as there was that gut feeling, there was also a feeling when I asked myself why. It was related to things not related to the case, just what was going on in my life, the stress, the drive that I had to make. And after reflection, even though I was very uncomfortable, I went ahead and worked the case, and we ended up having a successful find. My search dog Hope alerted that the dog was in this particular canyon, and the pet owner was able, she air scented to the canyon and alerted, and the pet owner was able to put up signs and stand. It was an HOA, so we couldn't just go in and search. And he was able to stand there and stop people coming in and out. And one person said, yes, that dog is under my back porch and I'm scared of dogs. So I haven't even gone out, but I saw it sneak under there. And he was able to get his dog back same day. So that's one of my examples about trusting my gut, but then also asking, why am I having such a strong response to this particular case? So that's not really in chronological order, but I think it's a really important point to start off with because we all come with our own experiences, knowledge, baggage, and we want to make sure we check that when we're trying to help people with their lost pets. One of my recommendations that I've found recently that I just had to share off the bat was to recommend to double dip when you're giving consultations. Now, some of you may already be doing this unconsciously, like you're washing the dishes and you're doing a consultation, but I want to bring it to your awareness that it really is the best way to be efficient in giving consultations is to not stop the world around you, but to keep going and do the consultations because they do take a lot of time. They can take a lot of time. And you can be productive and double dipping. So, double dipping is like I could be pet sitting and doing a consultation at the same time, and I could be getting paid for pet sitting and then I could be volunteering to do a consultation, or I could be charging for both. Another example would be driving to a case and doing a consultation on speakerphone. Obviously, you have to be safe. Main point is you want to do the consultation when it works for you. Here's some examples, real life examples. And you can see in the picture here, this is Cowgirl getting in my way of trying to do a consultation on the laptop. For example, Susan Long, she likes to do them when she's fresh. She does not want to do them after a case when she's driving back or after a long day searching, or even if she's just been running errands. She wants to do it in the morning when she's awake after her cup of coffee, when she's fresh. Landa does them immediately when she gets the call. She calls them back right away. She wants to schedule or do it at her first available time, and she treats it like it's her job. So she handles it as a businesswoman, gets the call, schedules it, does it as soon as possible. Me, I like to talk to people when I'm driving or in the afternoon when I'm a little bit awake. and I've had my morning to kind of process and think about the case, think about what I'm going to be talking to people about. Whatever you choose, you set the time that works best for you. Another point, obviously, anybody here who's done consultations or talked to people will have experienced where someone calls and says, so and so said this, or so and so didn't do this, and start bad mouthing whether it's another rescue or a volunteer or a paid service or reporting on a particular scam. And so I want to remind you not to badmouth anyone else. You really don't know the situation, and there's always two sides to every story. If something does come your way, I recommend reaching out to that person or that group so that you can clear the air. It really can develop some bad situations with lack of communication and gossiping. So stay away from those. Those really aren't related to helping the pets and people in need. Another big picture tip is to be honest, but don't over disclose personal information. I hear about this mistake being made where it's adequate to tell someone, I'm not available for your lost pet case. I have a medical procedure, or me recently, dental procedure. You don't have to go into grisly details and talk about, you know, private situations. You can simply say, I'm not available. I have a situation that needs my attention. I wish I could help. But the pet owners really don't need to hear private back end information. And it is taking away from their time to get back to searching for their lost pet and finding a resource that is available. One of the things I've started doing recently is to explain this is how I do it now, because people will find on the internet for the past 20 years, they'll find interviews from the first year I was doing lost pet searches, and they'll expect me to be doing it exactly the same way now. So I like to clarify and say that. One benefit of saying that is that it adds credibility to me in that I've been doing this so long. I have had the experience of trying something and it not working out, and now I know better, or trying something and having it work successfully and sticking with it. So I tell people this is how I currently do it, or this is how my current search dog team works, and others might do it differently. You can also explain why, and that adds credibility. One of the big examples of this is, how long does scent last? Or can search dogs help find my cat? Or has it been too long? I read online or somebody said it's been 48 hours. My cat's scent isn't there anymore. And so instead of making big, broad, general assessments, I say for my dogs, how I train in my experience. And I'll even say to the person, if you Google it, you can find 100 different answers about what's right. This is what I have experienced or how I train my dogs. This is my favorite slide. And you're going to see this picture for a few slides because it makes me smile with my emotional support hamster on my keyboard. You really do need to get the support and help you need for lost pet searches and for volunteer work, for consultations. I recommend being realistic about this. If you're awful on the phone, if you don't have soft skills, keep the phone time limited. Do consultations via email or pre record them. Do what is best for you and what you're good at and what you enjoy doing. You may need to get a phone helper. That could be a second person, an expert, or someone who you cross train in coaching on a particular method that it just isn't your favorite, or just to get off the phone. For example, maybe you're really good and you love to talk to people about animal behavior, but then maybe the recommendations or explaining exactly how to put up a poster is annoying to you and you've done it a million times already, or maybe going through the step by step with humane trapping a skittish cat. Well, maybe there's somebody locally to you or another volunteer or paid person that you can team up with, and you do the first part of the consultation, and then you hand off the call to the second person who then does the part about humane trapping or whatever it might be. Anything that you are repeating a million times should be in your FAQ, and it also should be in a document or a text message that you can easily copy and paste and send. So I offer my guides and I have resources. If anybody's interested, please reach out to me. I can make an arrangement where you use my resources or you can develop your own. And I'll be teaching you a little bit of some ways that you can do that further on in this talk. Be calm, be confident, and of course, compassionate. I'm going to dive into this using a script more, and I feel like it's a really important thing, and I'm going to talk to you about why. If you are not sure how it comes across, if it comes across too mechanical or not compassionate, record yourself saying your script and listen to it. You can also practice with a friend. I do recommend giving people initially a time limit and hold to it. This is really important, so we don't burn out and so we save energy and time for the next call, the next client to help them. When you set a timer, it also holds you to staying on topic, right? I am a talker, as many of you know, and I can talk forever about certain animal topics. So it's better that I have a timer where I check it or it dings to let me know, okay, I have to finish this up or I have to stay on point. When we are doing a consultation with someone who has a lost pet, time is of the essence. They don't have time to listen to our story about when this happened or that happened and go on and on about 20 years ago or complain about this or talk about our dentist appointment. We need to stay on point and stay professional. So here's a question for you if you want to and you're on the live session, is to type in the chat, how long are your consultations? Either do you set a timer or do you just have a rough idea of how long you stay on the phone or on email, going back and forth, or what about texts? How long do you do consultations? So I'm going to answer for myself. So for me, I have consultations that I separate into multiple categories. My initial consultation is where I'm getting the basics and I'm identifying, is this a case I want to work in person? Can I help them? What's the situation? It it's also where I decide, no, that's not a case. It's a theft case, 8-hour drive away from me. I can't help with it. Or, yeah, that's a case I can help. So those first consultations, I talk with someone for a brief period of time. I try to stay at about 20 minutes. After 30 minutes, that's my real cutoff time. That is enough time for them to get an idea of me to be able to help them, give them some feedback, and answer any questions they have. For my more in-depth phone consultation and some clients who need more emotional support and feedback and encouragement, I go up to an hour, and that consultation would be very in-depth and a more complicated case. One of my red flag rules is I don't talk to assistants. I only talk to the pet owner. And this actually comes from private investigative work legally, I cannot take a case from someone who is not the pet owner. I can't disclose or discuss confidential information with the assistant. I have to have a release and I need to speak with the owner. And it also it sends a message that the owner either isn't emotionally stable enough to speak with us or doesn't prioritize and value our expertise. And those are red flags for me. The newest recommendation I have for you is to record your phone calls. Is anybody currently recording their consultations and phone calls? You can type yes or no or put a little flag up, hand up, or heart up if you do. So why record calls? Why use a script? Whoops, sorry about that. So a script helps us be consistent. It helps us with clarity and it allows us to practice what we're going to say in advance, and it also reduces decision fatigue. So I want to focus on the consistency clarity part here. One of the things that happens when you use a script is that other people, either within your organization or outside the organization, will know if someone is telling them uh, uh, not the truth about what you've said. So I know if someone calls me and says, well, Landa Cold Iron of Lost Pet Detection said this, I know if it's true or not because I've heard her say her script 500 times. And the same in reverse. If someone calls her and says, well, Annalisa Burns said this, she is able to say, maybe not to the person, no, I don't think Annalisa said that because she knows my script and what I say to people. It keeps you consistent also. So if a client comes back and says, well, you said this, and you're like, I don't know, did I say that? I know for sure if I said it or not because it's in my script or it's not. It helps us also with clarity to stay on point and stay focused on what really matters. The decision fatigue, you may or may not be familiar with this, but when a person has to make a lot of choices and decisions, it does create fatigue. So for us giving a consultation, if we have reduced decisions, if we have this script to go on, it saves that emotional energy for other cases, for our family, for our pets, for when we're in person. It helps us in the big picture and helps reduce burnout. And it's a very important part about either staying in business or keeping in rescue. We also want the ability to replicate the consultation. That means, can we hire someone? Can we add volunteers? And my big question is, what do you do when you're sick? Does that mean you're sick and miserable and giving consultations? Are you then just not able to help people? What if you actually go on vacation? I had an awareness about this recently, just within the past few weeks, because I tried to give consultations and I tried to do online recordings and I ended up messing them up and I had to actually redo all the work a second time. So working when you're sick, you might think, oh, I'm pushing through it, but you actually could be doing more harm than good. It's better to rest when you're sick and have someone else do it. And if you have a script, it's not as good as you. We know it. We know that if you have a lot of experience in giving consultations, then you have an intuitive sense, you have a lot of experience in cases, you can give fantastic recommendations and really help one-on-one, but at least it will get that person started until you're better, until you can step in and give additional feedback. The easiest way to create a script is simply to transcribe yourself while you're talking or create a script using Chat GPT or AI. And you simply then, if you talk into it, you can edit it. So remove the parts that are chit chat, remove the parts that are going on and on and on, organize it so it makes sense of how you want to go through your consultation, print it out, and then practice it. Here's some examples of scripts to have in advance. And that could be your standard lost dog, standard lost cat script, standard decline case, all of these options. And I always include verbiage about the cases I take. So, yes, a client has an option to hire me or not, but I also have the final say in if I'm going to work a case or not. And my script says verbatim, I don't want to waste people's time or money, and I want to make sure I can help on every case I'm hired on. So that is what I say to every person when I'm doing that initial call with them. I also include it isn't like you see in the movies, and I also include there's no guarantees or we could find nothing at all, those sorts of verbiage to have realistic expectations. The main points that should be in your script should establish credibility and expertise, should gather key information, screen possible clients. We do want to be helpful, give feedback or recommendations, set those expectations. This is one of my hidden tips. I like to test my clients, but that's not busy work. I'll tell you more. And again, that there's no guarantees. So I'm going to pause here on this slide for a few minutes and talk about these specific categories because they're really important. Establishing credibility and trust. Here's a couple ways that I do that. And I do that very quickly from the beginning of the call. I do that through active listening. That means when they say something, I repeat it back to them like a parrot or mimicking. And I use affirmative words so they know I'm listening. Yes, I see, I understand. Oh, wow. Okay, I got it. So they know I'm engaged. I talk clearly and slowly. I don't, especially if somebody's really upset and they're crying and they're talking loud or hyperventilating, I don't match their pace, their energy. I bring my energy down and low and slow so I can be clear and to help them self regulate. I display being non judgmental in the conversation. So when I do this, I say things like, accidents happen. They say, I can't believe I did this. I can't believe I lost my cat at this park. I say, accidents happen. These things happen. I affirm their experience in this situation, their perspective. So I say things like, I'm so sorry. Wow, this is a really awful situation for you. I don't judge when people make mistakes, and I let them know that it's okay. People will not call us for consultations or for help because they are so embarrassed about the bad choices that they made or that they've received a lot of negative backlash or feedback from social media and they're tired and they're afraid they don't want to be beat down anymore by negativity or blaming themselves. They blame themselves already a lot. Ways that I also affirm their perspective is by saying things like, wow, you've done a lot already. I see how much you've done. I hear how much effort you have been putting into doing these things. Even if it's only 10 flyers, from their perspective, they've done a lot. So affirming that perspective. I will mention prior cases, but only when applicable. And I will mention the length of training that I've had, recent workshops I've attended, my education, or my credentials. I won't go in depth about it, but I do mention it to add to credibility and trust, not bragging, but just letting them know I take this seriously. For example, about giving feedback, for example, like people will call and say, I think my pet was stolen. Somebody stole my kitty cat. And then I'll give feedback that is including my experience. So I'll say, I've been working lost pet cases for over 20 years. And I'll share with you, in my experience, I estimate only one case a year is where a pet is knowingly stolen. Most of the time, it's rescued and then either kept or not. The person doesn't know how to return it. And then I'll point out that the cat or dog wasn't wearing ID tags. So that's how I weave in my experience and my knowledge in the feedback or the answer. I don't just say, well, that doesn't happen, or that's not true, or I don't think that happened in your case. I weave in my experience to it. The second point about gathering key information, I definitely use a questionnaire, and I will be sharing that with you via email after this training so you can look at my questions, compare what you ask, and it is very in depth. I ask a very extensive questionnaire. Yours might be different, and depending on the area you're in, your questions might be very different. I Two of my main questions I want to highlight now are that I ask if they are in a homeowners association, and I ask if they have access for us to search. Because those two questions more and more are becoming variables that I need to know about in advance. A homeowners association will have rules about where signs can be, how long, what can be in their yard. They might even have rules about where people can park, times people can visit, where people can walk their dogs that might impact if I'm bringing out search dogs, for example. So knowing if there's an HOA gives me that red flag. Okay, I need to talk and ask about these questions first. As far for is there access? That is a really important question, especially in the United States, in different states where we have different gun laws and different trespassing laws. In some states, we have stand your ground gun laws where people can shoot first, ask questions later. It's very dangerous. So we need to make sure that we understand, are we going to be able to get onto these properties safely and search? Or is our safety and the dog's safety going to be at risk? This also goes as far as access. Is it a swamp next to you? Are there alligators in the south? Are there bramble bushes our search dog can't go through or we can't go through? So asking those access questions. So those are my two main. I want to get to the bottom and see, can I be successful in this case? What are going to be the obstacles that for me are deal breakers? One of the reasons I don't just put those on my questionnaire is because I do want to have a conversation about them with the person. And I want to be able to get feedback about how they're approaching their search and safety and how they're going to approach my safety and my search dog safety. So, for example, if I say to someone, I see you have a gate code to get into your housing development. Is it like an HOA? And they say, oh, yeah, it is. And I say, okay, so when I'm searching, is that okay? Are you allowed to have guests with dogs on leash in all areas? And then if they say back to me, well, no, but I don't care. I'm going to do it anyway. I don't care if they find me. They can call the police if they want to. Well, that's a red flag because that's fine if they want to do that, but they were not going to tell me without me asking, and they were making that decision for me. Can you imagine if I showed up at a search and then the police were called because the HOA has a rule about where dogs can go, And there are HOAs that have strict rules like that now. The third point is to screen possible clients. And this can be a little bit of a controversial topic because we want to help everybody. We want to help every lost pet. But especially if you're running a business or you understand that even volunteering, you have liability involved when you're going out and trying to help an animal or a person with a lost pet, you do need to screen possible clients. And not everyone is a client, but we want to help everyone who calls. So most people need encouragement, they need education, and they need a consultation for sure. But that doesn't mean everybody, for safety, financially, logistically, are able to have someone come out in person and help them, whether trapping or search dogs or witness development. I like to see if I can help them or see what barriers might be stopping them from finding their pet successfully. Some of the issues, red flags that I use to screen people if I'm not going to go on a case in person is if they're arguing with me, if they find that other things are more important than talking to me. So, for example, they're at the grocery store shopping and they're ordering food at a drive-through. They're not taking the time, pulling over, talking to me, taking it seriously, giving me their full attention. Again, if they send an assistant to contact me, that's also a sign of that. And if they try to tell me what they want me to do, I only need you to come out with your search dog and find where my cat is hiding. I don't need you to talk to me about animal behavior. Those are all red flags and identify that there is barriers to being able to help this person. Now, I don't mind if people ask me questions or even if they want to say, well, I read that putting out kitty litter is fine, or I read kitty litter is not okay. We can have a conversation about that. But if somebody takes it to arguing and I'm a professional in this field, then that's a red flag. They're not going to be happy with anything I tell them, and they're going to want to argue a lot of the time. The fourth point is to provide help. So, help for anyone could be resources or feedback, like about someone stole my cat. Well, you have a black cat, there's 10 other black cats in your neighborhood. Most likely, somebody didn't steal just your black cat. Put it in a different, delicate way, but you get my message. I focus on the big picture and I focus on three important tasks for them to start with because I find that a lot of us are overwhelming people with too much information and too much to dos. Like they all of a sudden have to be a cat expert to get their cat back. No, they need to know how to make some signs about humane trapping, whatever it is, those specific tasks. It also wastes a lot of time to go over details of what if scenarios. So sometimes clients will ask me, what if what if I see my cat and they're under a car? How do I grab it? And I'm like, okay, if that situation happens, reach back out to me, right? Or you have to, I tell them something general. If you have to figure out and adjust your strategy for when you get a visual on your cat or when your cat goes into a trap. Going down these multiple rabbit holes doesn't help them or us, and it gets us way off track. What are the chances they're going to find their cat under a car in that particular situation? A big one about this is my cat would come if I call. That's obviously a big one. Same with dogs. And this is an opportunity for you to give feedback, but it's also to display your expertise and knowledge. The fifth point is to set expectations and boundaries. When you use a timer, that starts it off on the right foot, letting them know I have 20 minutes to talk with you. Oftentimes I won't tell them the exact time, but I'll say, I have a short period of time to talk to you right now. If you have more questions, we can always speak again another time. But right now I wanted to get back with you as soon as possible and go over the most important points. Another point to make is that you're not on call. I'm sure all of us have had people try to reach us at 2 a.m., and that's not long-term sustainable. You need your sleep. So letting them know, hey, you can text me anytime or email anytime, but I do have to then make an appointment for the call, or I have to call you when I have time the next day. This also includes giving people deadlines if you offer in-person services. So if you have to know to have enough time to prepare for a case by 10 a.m. the day before your search or your trapping starts, tell them that deadline out front. That helps them also understand that there will be boundaries in this service, whether you're volunteering or charging, and they can't just walk all over the situation and take advantage of it. I also communicate that multiple methods are often required to recover a lost pet. For example, luring, trapping, witness development. So they understand the scope of a lost pet search. The sixth point is that I test clients. Now, I've never heard of anybody else doing this. Somebody else could be, but I test almost all of my clients. I, in particular, test my clients if they argue or have any red flags because I want to make sure that I'm comfortable working with them and they can follow directions. So I don't give people busy work, but I do give them an important task to do that will help their case. And I ask them to validate that they've done that with me. One of the go to things I do is a giant sign. Stake a giant sign in your front yard about your lost cat. Take a picture, send it to me. Or I'll say, take a picture, make a big sign, take a picture, send it to me so I can give you feedback or give you thumbs up to post it in your front yard. This really helps with compliance. It really helps with working with people who want to work with me, and I'm not going to be pouring all of my energy into someone who from the get-go isn't going to do what I say anyway. And then finally, I make sure that they are on the same page with me about clear expectations and that I can't guarantee any particular outcome. I don't have a crystal ball and I can't predict magically if their pet will be recovered using any particular technique. Why record calls, phone calls, or transcribe calls? You want to document your calls and what you tell people. I don't ask people if I can record the call or the video call. I tell them. I'm recording our call for case notes. I'm recording the video call for case records. This is important for liability, documentation. It's good because you can have it for accuracy, for future use to look at how you're talking with people, how long it's taking, what you're recommending that's working and not. It also helps if you have a business and you have chargebacks, you have evidence that you did provide the services. Absolutely, I found their pet and they've done chargebacks and they've canceled payments for me. So you need to have the documentation that the service was provided if you're charging for it. It's also really helpful to remind people what they should be doing, and you can save time and improve compliance with checklists. I'm not going to go through all of the options available out there, but I do want to give you a couple of resources for you to research on your own and find out what's the best for you. Here's a list of a couple. Some of these I've tried, some of them have been recommended. I personally like Otter AI, and I'll show you that in a minute. And I also like Zoom. I like the AI like Gemini or Chat GPT. And then Movavi Screen Recorder is also a great resource for recording. And also, then you can have it available to the client if that is a good idea for that particular case. Some people just need to listen or read things multiple times. So I'm going to show an example of doing a transcript on Zoom, summary on Zoom, so you get the idea. Again, I'll be also sending out these slides so you can watch this on your own. So I also included a link to a Chat GPT that I did that had problems because when you copy and paste a whole transcript, it definitely can be a lot of information for AI to try to digest and come up with a checklist. So I've had difficulty with that. It wants to do it in chunks of information instead of as much content as like Otter AI or Zoom. So those are all ways you can use AI to help. And then you have a checklist you can send your client to check off from your consultation with them. You can also use this to create your contracts. And I'll be going over in a few minutes when to send people a contract or a quote, and you can actually copy and paste the transcript or the main points and then have AI create a customized action plan or quote for someone based on your conversation with them. So here I have my step-by-step initial consultation, and I'm not going to go through this word by word, but just summarizing it, and you will have access to this with the slides. And this is basically my initial consult and how I keep people on track. A few points is I tell them the outline of the call at the beginning. I say, I'm first going to ask you questions. I've already studied your case in detail. I'm going to explain the services, whatever it is, and then I want to answer your questions. Does that sound good to you? Or is that okay with you? And that gets their buy-in, that gets their agreement and engagement, and keeps all those questions hopefully towards the end. And because most of the time I've answered all the questions, by the time we get to the end, they don't have any. So that's how I start the consultation. Another point, clients often will be very invested in telling you what they've done already. Rarely is this important for our services or screening them, and usually I have that information already from my questionnaire. So I reply in the affirmative, I use active listening, I validate their feelings, but then I try to move on quickly to other topics that I need to spend time on with them. I ask my screening questions. Are you in an HOA? Then I go into about the services, setting realistic expectations and boundaries, and what I do and don't do. I don't do interior searches with my current search dog team, so I inform them of that so they have that information in the decision-making process. And I give them 3 high value pieces of information or recommendations to get them started. I offer supportive steps next. I want them to find their pet whether they hire me or not. So I leave them with when can they call me? When can I call them? How are we going to follow up? What are the deadlines that are involved? And then what questions do you have? Here's some mistakes to avoid. Over-promising results. I have a case example for this. I worked a case in Colorado right after I had a walk-up find, and boy, were my britches big and my head was the size of I don't know what, but it was big. After that live walk-up find, I was walking on water, and I definitely overpromised. And then on the second case, it did not go well because I I was of the mindset of just having had that live walk-up find, and so over promising, you want to make sure that you are realistic and that every case you can't promise an outcome. Another mistake is feeling responsible for the case or the outcome and taking it personally. You are not responsible for the universe and what has happened with this pet. You are trying to help, and what you can do is your best. Judging clients is also a mistake. You want to normalize what the situation is. Let them know you have seen this before, you've helped get pets back in this situation. And I like to say something like, how could you have known that would have happened? You can't predict the future. You didn't know that that pet sitter was going to be unreliable or the boyfriend was going to try to steal your dog. Don't skip documentation or documenting verbal agreements and recording calls, documenting video calls, etc. If you like, you can share in the chat any mistakes that you've made that all of us can learn from. I know that would be appreciated. I wanted to add a couple saving time tips. You want to use your questionnaire to gather data and then review that. One of the things with the questionnaires, if you have it online, I use Google Docs. You can use whatever format online works. It then is data that you can use for the future. And you can use that for checking stats. You can use that to see the correlation between, let's say, the weight of a cat and how far it is when found from home, or the age of cats that you most likely get contacted that go missing. This also is an opportunity to cut them off if they're listing the 4 million things they've done, like putting up 10 flyers, calling the shelter, etc. I will actually ask them permission to interrupt them. Can I interrupt you for a second? I needed to ask, has your cat ever gone missing before? Or whatever the follow-on question is, I really do need to know. Let them know that there will be a time at the end to ask questions. That FAQ, if you're always getting the same questions, it should be included in that. I recommend having links or emails to documents that you use and things that you have the most common questions about, and record your screen. So first I'm going to show you one of the examples that I have on my website, which is my 48-hour lost cat protocol. So I get a lot of calls. The kitty cat just went missing. And by the way, they're 6 hours away from me. And I am booked the rest of the day with either consultations or personal appointments. I can't drop everything and coach them on how to do a physical search for their kitty cat. So instead, I text them a link to a page that's on my website that's hidden. It's not on my menus, it's not visible. It's a special link I send directly to them. And I'm going to share that with you now. One moment. So you can see what it looks like. So when they follow that link that I text them, it goes to my 48-hour cat protocol. And sometimes I'll send this for small dogs too. And I have an introduction that says this is to increase the likelihood of finding their cat on their own, and it will aid if they decide to bring the search dogs out. We require them to follow this protocol if we want them to come out, if they want us to come out with the search dogs. And it includes critical points about preserving a scent article, dealing with sightings. It includes pictures of giant posters, and that it includes a few tasks for them to get started with. So physical searches and including a checklist of locations outside of their property, talking to the neighbors and getting permission, because if we want to come out and search with the search dogs or do trapping, we need to have that access point taken care of. And then them actually physically searching to see if they can find their cat on their own. So I found that having that readily available, that content that I can send them right away, helps them take action faster, more efficiently. I'm not wasting time explaining you have to check inside of grills and you have to check underneath pool filters and all of that. They have that checklist on their cell phone or on their laptop that they can go through on their own. So I want to go back and I want to share with you how I am now using um, video call and Zoom to do shared screen with people, and how that has really helped me with compliance and also engagement with my clients. That gives you a brief idea, so I can do that either if I'm doing a video call consultation, or if I'm doing an email consultation, I can pre-record that and send that to them. And that also, the feedback I get from people is that it also helps them see like the thought process. And then when they get there and they go, oh, there's no debris pile to hide the camera behind in the church parking lot, so I moved it, but I found someplace else to hide it. It really is a positive thing for them to see in real time my assessment of areas to put cameras or to put signs, etc. I also like to send people a link to pictures about what I'm talking about, or actual, like a link to my Google Pictures. And it looks something like this. So, especially for witness development, for how I want the trap positioned, for how I want the camera positioned. I'll send them a screenshot or a picture so they can see actually what I'm talking about. And it saves a lot of time trying to explain how big should the type or print be, or how far away should the camera be. I just send them a picture. And then I ask for the same in return. I say, send a picture of your humane trap setup. Send a picture of the giant poster you are making or you posted out. And that way I can give them feedback and correction in before they, spend a lot of money on making signs and then the type is so small you can't see it. I also will talk about additional services. This helps them see how many different methods might be required to actually recover a lost pet. So I might talk about surveillance or trapping or analyzing maps. I said I would go over when to give quotes, and this is for nonprofits can accept donations or have a sliding scale, and same thing with businesses. So there are four options, and this is basically before you talk to them, immediately when you start talking to them, at the end of the phone call, or after the phone call. And I list those here with some pros and cons of each. Personally, for me, it depends on how busy I am. It also depends on how far I would have to drive for the case, because then that would increase the cost for travel time and expenses. So if that's the case, I'm more likely to tell them right off the bat, hey, this is really going to be expensive to have. It's a 6-hour drive each way. I'm going to have a hotel room, etc., or an Airbnb, versus if they're half an hour away, and then I might speak with them for the consultation and then send it to them afterwards or tell them towards the end of the phone call. Here's some of the more difficult questions, and I recommend you have that script set up. What are the main points you're going to make to answer difficult questions, and be prepared for it. One of them is, what's your success rate? Because we all know that really doesn't give you an accurate picture of if you're going to be successful searching for their pet or not. So it gives them, if you say whatever you say, it gives them a false sense of how that actually relates to their case. And my personal case example about this is my dog Rainbow. I asked the vet, what's the success rate of doing this very invasive cancer surgery to remove the cancer? And he said, well, it's like 80-90% success rate. Well, that gave me a false idea of what the success rate really meant, because to them, success was survival for only 3 months after surgery. So we want to be really careful about how we answer that, and that we don't give a false sense, pro or con, to a pet owner who's trying to make a decision. Another difficult question, what if someone has my pet and doesn't want to return it? Because this is really getting off topic. And so I try to keep it simple with my answer and say it depends on the situation. We cross that bridge when we get to it. And then asking them what other questions they have, you don't know what we'll come up with. So if you want to, in the chat, you can share what are you considering difficult questions during a consultation or about your services. Now, follow-up is sort of separate from consultations, but I wanted to include it here just to remind us to be critical about how we're following up, when we're following up. There's pros and cons to following up with people. I remember reading a book about how when clergy and religious leaders and individuals in a community help people when they have a passing of a loved one or a trauma, oftentimes they don't hear from that person ever again. And they say that that's okay for them because they understand that it reminds them of that awful time. And so sometimes following up with people isn't helpful. So each case is different, but it's good to have a protocol in place. Do you send them a text? Do you email them? Do they have to pay more if they talk to you again? How are you going to organize that? And what is the best practices to follow up with people? Before I get to our last slides, I want to mention again that I have an upcoming Business Basics, which is charging for lost pets. That can apply for nonprofits because we are going to talk a little bit about fundraising, how to do a sliding scale, some different options with that, and then goal setting. And if you have any requests or topics, please let me know. I want to offer informative training and education for people who want to help with the lost pet problem and need a place to start. So please let me know. So now is the time for me to answer any questions that you have. And I'm starting with the questions I received in advance. And so if you have any questions, you can type them in the chat and I will be answering those. The first question here was, should we reach out to lost Facebook posts with a link of our business? When we contact people directly on social media, it often comes across as a scam. And so that you want to be sensitive about. There are so many scams going on there online. I just did an interview with the TV station on Tuesday because someone is scamming my website and they have more followers on Facebook than I do. So we want to be sensitive about that. It's better if it comes from a third party of a recommendation. And we don't want to put any pressure on someone during a difficult time. So you could just say, FYI, there are resources. I'm more likely to link to CAT's website, Missing Animal Response, or to another website that gives free information and has a directory so they can look up resources on their own and they can look under whatever state and see, oh, I'm in Florida and reach out to me that way. Than I am to post a direct link to my website. Someone also asked about time limits. We talked about that. Free or paid, how much to charge. So to figure out how much to charge, I recommend 3 options. One is you calculate your expenses, your cell phone bill, the cost of having your website, and then figure what that means for your consultations. How much does the consultation actually cost you to do? It's not free. Even if you're volunteering to do it with a nonprofit, it is not free to do. And then double or triple that, and that gives you an idea of what you should charge. Another way is going rate. So right now for my email consultation, and I've kept it the same, I haven't raised it in about 10 years. I'm charging $160 for an unlimited email consult so they can email me as many times as they want, or $220 for a phone plus email consult. That includes my guide. I give them maps where I mark what methods to use where, or I do the share screen video with them. And for the phone consultation, it's unlimited follow-up via email. And I also include text because that's like easy for me to do here and there between whatever I'm doing. The third option is a sliding scale or donation. You do have to give people an amount, otherwise they will not come even close. They'll donate $1. So you have to give it some context and have it be in comparison. So they might think they don't know. You might be independently wealthy and you're doing this because you won the lottery. They don't know. So you have to provide the context of, for example, every month I spend $300 on these expenses so that I can offer consultations on a sliding scale or for donations. I have to have uh, consultations pay an average of $40 in order to continue doing this next month. And then you send them a link or your Venmo or however you're doing that. So, what questions do you have? Let's see here. You can unmute or you can type your question in the chat, or you could be like in my consultations, by the time I'm done, they don't have questions.
I just have a question if you ever do consulting around, because I can see you doing this, quite frankly, if you've never done it before, consulting around websites to get those a little bit more functional and ready for just improving the overall process.
The process is really important. And if you are doing it as a business, it would be, like your sales funnel or your information funnel. Or for the nonprofit, it's, how do you get the people the information they need? Um, I actually have my web guy is going to be doing a training with me probably in 2026 where he talks about what he looks at having. He's been the guy. I mean, when I first started 20 years ago, I was doing my website myself, but in the past 15 years, he's been the one who has been helping with my website and trial and error. And so I'm looking at doing a training with him where he also can talk about some of the things like I was hacked really bad a couple years ago, how to prevent that from happening, and also how to help people get the information they need. And there's always room for improvement.
Okay,
Thank
so
you
that
for
would be
suggesting that.
so that would be something that you would be recommending him versus you, because I mean you have the experience with the
Yeah.
process.
Yeah, it's gonna be like a co-class.
Okay.
So
That,
he
I
would,
mean, honestly, I think, I'm with Missing Dogs
yeah.
Massachusetts, which, is covering, the whole state of Massachusetts, parts of Rhode Island. But I think this is something that, for volunteers could be improved to get people faster information. I don't think they've changed that part of their process in quite a long time. So I'm going to be recommending it from this session.
Oh, excellent. I'm so glad to hear that. And I want to show you, I want to share just to on that topic, a couple other examples of how I do this. Um, and I'll show you. Let me share my screen. So this is my roaming dog cheat sheet. So I shared like with cats,
Yeah, I
that
love
are
the
missing.
cats one. That was great.
Yeah, and it was because out of necessity, like I'm so tired. This is the 40th cat that's been missing for 12 hours and they want me to come out with my search dogs. Well, I'm not going to because you're probably
Right.
going to find your cat before I can deploy. So this is really on the extreme end of content. This is really too much content, but I got tired of people asking me, can you come out with with your search dogs? I have a shy, skittish dog that just went missing and is being seen running back and forth across Sepulveda Boulevard in Los Angeles. I'm like, no, I can't come out with my search dog for that. So I made an overview of a roaming dog cheat sheet and I included general information. It might be hard to see because the font is really small to get
Yeah.
all of this in, but for example, don't chase a roaming or shy dog. I started with that.
Right.
Then I added phases, and then I expand on each phase, confirm sighting, pinpoint. Then I have get your own sighting. You need a picture or, wildlife camera, use feeding station. And, you know, on
Right.
the bottom, nowhere does it say hire the search dogs, right? so
Right.
so it helps me screen the call, help them get the information as quickly as possible, but I still think it's too much info and overwhelming. But at
Right.
least I get them like, here's the big picture overview. Um,
Right.
I have cheat sheets, I have checklists for hiding places for cats, indoor and outdoor hiding
Yeah,
places.
I really like those cat links because it was really clean.
Mm,
Here's what to do for an inside. I mean, I'm trying to instruct people on inside searches for dogs. Um,
yep.
so it's nice to have a quick link that says, here's how to do an inside search for a dog.
Right.
But I don't
And
think our website is strong enough right now to do
mm,
that.
right, right. Yeah. And by the way, also, you can do a link to a page that is password protected. So I'll show you on my questionnaire. Let me pull up my questionnaire. So so what I'm showing you is the back end of my questionnaire, not how people see it. I have one for dogs and cats. Right at the beginning, I have a scam alert because I say make sure you're talking to me at my phone number, etc. But I
Right.
want to scroll down all the way. I have a very long questionnaire, which I'm going to send you. Let me see if I can scroll faster. Uh, yeah, here we go. Okay, so on the very last section, which is 9, it says prep checklist for in-person searches. For in-person searches with canines, please follow this link for what to do next. So it's to a hidden page on my website, and the password is client. So I'll open this so you can see. So I don't have to send it to the person when they fill out my questionnaire. It automatically gives them this link. Can you see where it says this page is protected by
Yes.
password?
Yeah, that's
So
great.
then if they put in my password, which is client, then this is my prep checklist if we're going to use search dogs. So they have to email me
Nice.
a picture.
Yeah,
They have
that's great. I love that.
flyers. Is there parking? And then I mark critical so they see what they have to confine their other pets. They have to have a scent article. We have to have access.
Yeah, that's great.
These things. So,
Yeah, see, I love this because I mean
you
unfortunately I would say missing dogs sends out lists of this stuff, but it's just unwieldy because it's everything at once. I would rather be like what you're doing, you're adapting to what is the most important things tonight. Your dog's been lost at midnight. What's the most important things to do at midnight?
right,
I would love a quick link to say, here, I'm sending you a quick link of everything that's really important right now. I mean, I can definitely talk them through that and usually do, but it would be nice for somebody like hanging flyers. Like, how many times do you want to tell people that? And
yeah,
honestly, they do it wrong a lot, right? So to actually have a quick link where there's maybe a little video of showing how to do it would be a whole lot better than you're talking them through it and you go out in the field and go, oh my God, they did it all wrong.
exactly, exactly.
Just wasting time, right? It's wasting time when
And
they have to do the
energy
flyers all over again.
and money. Like, what if they have $100 budget for their whole
Right,
search, and then
right,
they just spent it on,
right.
like we had somebody do color copies on colored paper. So it was like neon yellow paper,
And you could
color
barely see it.
copies of their
Yeah.
orange kitty cat on a yellow paper. It
Ugh,
was a total waste of money. So, showing people what it should look like
right.
during the process. And again, that helps with compliance. And you do have to
Yeah,
balance out, like, you can't. I mean, I've had some people, they want me to be on the phone with them or video call when they go shopping at Walmart to buy their
right,
supplies. Like, you have to have a boundary there
right,
too.
Right.
but it helps streamline, especially if you're repeating it, if it's driving you crazy, if
Right.
people are not following the directions, then make it
Yeah.
easier for them to succeed.
Yeah, citing call, when they get a citing and they basically have missed half the information that
Yes,
we need, you know? I'm like, I'm
exactly.
giving them like a document with here, this is an example of collecting information on a citing. Here's all the columns I want. But that would like me doing that instead of it just being available quick on a website where
Right,
I can just
right.
link them right to that document.
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
And people say, well, if I Google it, can't I just get this? The problem is right now, there's so much content out there. People can't find the information that they need. So part of the service that we provide, volunteer or paid, is connecting them with the highest priority, highest quality content and information we can. Like I
Right.
talked to a woman earlier today who is in Georgia with a lost, is it Georgia or North Carolina? I can't remember. Anyway, with a lost cat. And she said she had spent a couple hours just trying to Google lost pet help near me. Well, if you put in lost pet help near me, you're going to get
Oh,
like veterinarians, you're going to get pet sitters, you're going to get pet
yeah.
food, you're going to get everything. And to go through that info, and I was able to be like, here's what resources, call this person, do this. She was like, oh my gosh, thank you for cutting out all of the noise
Right.
from that Google search. And I didn't find anything. So that's part of how we also improve our services and help more people.
Right.
So great. Thank you so much for the feedback and thank you for being here. I know you were a little bit like, I don't know if, how much you do. You can tell me. I've been
Yeah.
doing a lot. Do you have
Yeah.
any tips for us?
No, listen, it was good because you know, being a part of a very large organization, it's hard when I'm not part of the management team, the board of directors. It's hard when you have a group of people that have been around for a long time and you're making suggestions. I'm making suggestions on a pretty frequent basis, but it's those guys have been around for a long time, and I'm sure it's exhausting. It's exhausting
Yeah.
to run these organizations. They have very active roles. They help with these cases, which,
Hmm.
is hard because,
Yeah.
that takes up a lot of time. So that's why I think, maybe a little money spent can take some pressure off and actually make the whole process more streamlined. And like you said, gain more compliance, not
Hmm.
just from the owners, but the actual volunteer. When you have a lot of volunteers, compliance can go out the window with volunteers really quickly.
Yeah, exactly. And I want to add two little pieces of ammo for you to consider or to mention to them.
Yeah.
One is long-term sustainability.
Yep.
So as we have nonprofits or businesses, and we look 20 years down the road, who is going to carry the legacy on? Who's going to be helping with the
Yes.
lost pet problem?
Yep.
And if we gatekeep, if we have a really difficult procedure process that only one person knows about or whatever, when something happens with that one person, the whole
Yeah.
pyramid will fall apart.
Yes.
So part of it is um, streamlining, documenting, improving as we go so that it can be long term sustainable.
Yeah, that's no, it's a really great point, and I know they're thinking about that because everyone's starting to age a little bit. I think they are worried about that. They're worried about the next set of leaders coming through and haven't really figured that out yet.
This
So,
is a really important part of of doing that, of looking at that.
yeah, and that's what I think is like, can I convince them to spend some investment in shoring up the tools for volunteers, the webs. I don't think the website has changed in a very long time. And how technology changes, like, look at you're really modernized with your client interviews with, the summaries. Um, I don't know if they would go to that level at this point, but just I can see it being a lot more streamlining and
Mm,
just again helpful to volunteers. I've been training a whole new group of volunteers for, a year and a half now as they bring on new volunteers. And it's a lot when, say, hey, I use this document, I use that document. Volunteer comes up with their own list that they're sending owners. And, there's, like that loss of compliance.
mhm.
um, I'll hear from another, more experienced volunteer, hey, did you listen in on that person's call? I'm kind of concerned, like, because it's
Yeah.
real easy. It really takes special people to do this. They have to have all kinds of skills. And, one of those skills is confidence, right? You have to have confidence to be able to do this. And so sometimes you get volunteers that gain confidence on just a couple of cases, and then they're just off and sometimes off the rails a little bit.
Right.
You
Off the
know,
protocol. Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
yeah,
and that's also, people who are in business and volunteer, I don't think we take it seriously enough conserving our energy.
correct.
We just go from one case to the next case or one lost pet, next lost pet call. And that I've been doing it 20 years. I have burned out like three or
Yeah,
four times. And then I can't work any cases because I'm just
you're
depleted.
right. Right. And that
So,
is one of their concerns. I know that that's one of the director's concerns of burning people out,
yeah, it's
but
it's real.
yet haven't really done a lot of work around that,
Yeah.
you
Well,
know?
this is an important way is how we screen people, how we help them, how we deal with them,
Yep.
how can we, make that a better process, more compliance at the beginning of things. And it does take some effort in the back end. Let me show you also, I'm going to share screen.
And I'm sorry, I'm
Um,
I'm sort of stealing all of your time. Does anybody else have
I,
something?
I haven't seen anybody come up, but let me
Okay.
show you. Oh, wait, hold on. This isn't what I was going to share. That's that. Let me pull it up here. So this is something else I've been experimenting with, um, especially having, like, let's say you have 10 pending cases at the same time. I have a
Yeah.
hard time keeping track with what's going on.
Yeah.
So I started using this document, which is like a summary overview. And I use this with some of my email consultations, and I will send them this document, and it has like my info on it. And then it goes over like, this was a little bit more. This was someone who was volunteering to search for someone else's cat, and I had worked with her before successfully helping her find her cat. So
Okay.
she wasn't a newbie to the situation. So this was like taking it to the next level. So I broke it out a little bit in a different way to, how, um, possible scenarios, because she was really acting more as the consultant with the owner instead of
Yeah.
me, right?
Yeah.
And so, I did this and then did like a plan of action with pictures in a more, simplified and not just all
Yeah.
text, but it shows you that you can change the progress to, you can add status where you can say, that this hasn't been started, or this, they put out signs, this is a completed case or task.
Nice.
So there's also ways, and of course spreadsheets, but Chat GPT, you can ask it, or Google AI, you can ask it do editable or spreadsheet, or the other one is flow charts. It'll make them for you, and then of course you have to edit them. But my point is, let me show you this one that I was playing with. Um, it doesn't have to take as much back end time as it used to. So this one is just, I asked AI to make a flow chart to say when can we deploy search dogs or not? What are the good? And so it didn't do it perfectly, but it has a basic outline that I then can move stuff around and and work with, and then save this as an image or use it with my volunteers to help them better understand, when we can use search dogs or when we're actually going to go out and trap, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So it just makes it's a lot easier. It used to be you had to pay somebody to do it. It's like this huge project. Now you can use AI and then
To
tweak
help
it.
you create those
Yeah.
pieces. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
good. That's good.
Okay, in wrapping
Thank
up, I
you.
see Patty said there's resources for board development that get overlooked. There are. There are a lot of resources and also for businesses and nonprofits with our, county and state resources are out there too.
Okay, thanks.
So
I'm gonna
I'll
look into
stay
that.
on for about another 5 minutes in case anybody wants to stay on and say hi. I really thank everybody. I hope you got a lot out of this training and this information. I would love to get your feedback and I look forward to seeing you in a future business basics online training or in person. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.